Hi everyone, welcome to Rangle. Glad to see everyone who came out. It's a really exciting event. So my name is Nick Van Woudenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of Rangle, and I just have a few opening remarks, and then I will hand it over to the panel. So, welcome everyone, particularly our guests. So we have here today Arun Ramdeane, Senior Director of Technology at Staples, Michael Garrity, the CEO of Financeit, Andrew Graham, CEO of Borrowell, and Takara, small tech journalist at the Globe and Mail. So kudos to TD for this incredible focus on innovation at all levels of the organization. It is unique and it's really exciting to have everyone here. It's an incredible way to spark conversation through inspiration. Those conversations and getting different people together and having those conversations that are unexpected that give these unique bits of insight and motivation to chase down new ideas. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the conversation. We're really excited to be here and involved in this conversation. It's always been the mandate of Rangle to create an environment of radical transparency in the interest of moving the community forward. So we're always happy to share absolutely everything about what we do, how we do it, how we think, how we work. When we've done training in the past, we publish it Creative Commons. When we create technology, instead of trying to do IP, we share it because we're a learning organization that partners with the community. So feel free to ask anything. We have a curated afternoon focusing on the exceptional customer experiences, on creating exceptional customer experiences from a technology, design, and strategy perspective. One of the really exciting things over the last few years is that intersection of creative technology and strategy in a much more innovative learn and respond process that's enabled by our evolution in terms of DevOps and creative practices. And I hope is that each of you will find a moment or moments throughout the day that make you want to do something with the spark at TD, with your own teams or your clients. And the best thing is to come out today, with that perspective or those ideas, those sparks that can help move innovation forward.
Hi, I'm Mandy Bitar. I'm a Director of Architecture and Innovation here at Rangle. What I do is I consult with our clients on digital solutions. So I understand their business problems. I help them with a strategy, and I'm there for them as well along the way. I come from a very technical background. I have 10+ years of experience in deep development and delivery.
Hi, I'm Farouk Dossa. I'm a Group Director of Client Services here at Rangle, and I work to manage the relationship between us and our partners. I focus not only on the short-term objectives, but the long-term as well, and help develop a deep relationship with them. I've been in the industry for about a part of 15 years, and love working here.
Hi, my name is Arun Ramdeane. I'm the Senior Director of Store Technology and Services at Staples Canada. I really focus on transformation and how we bridge the gap in cross-technology with the retail environment and how we provide better frictionless customer experiences.
I'm Howie Howatson. It's actually Michael, but everyone just calls me Howie. My parents aren't insane. I'm the VP of Creative here at Rangle. I've been in the industry for over 25 years, mainly focused in the digital and the experiential space. And I've been with Rangle for an interesting 10-month journey as we've cranked up our machine to help service our clients better.
So I'm wondering, you guys, each one of you works in a very specific space, but you all have a common goal, which is innovating and working with traditional companies to provide the best service. And I'm wondering, we're in a time where digital is constantly changing. Customers are always wanting the next best service, the next best thing, but that costs money. So I'm wondering, how are you working towards giving customers what they want and what they need? Well, love it. Go for it, Mandy.
Yeah. So technology is moving so super fast. Yeah. And there's a lot of competition out there. There's disruptors, especially for institutions that are very traditional. So one thing we do usually is understand their business, where they want to go, what's their vision. And we want to enable them with technologies that can scale. So if you're working with technologies that are very old, technical debt, or like a monolithic application, for example, you won't be able to iterate as fast and keep up with the pace of where the digital world is going, right? So this is one of the ways we approach it, looking at where they're at now, the processes they have. Some processes have to be updated as well. And if they have the technical skills to get them as well there, we look at their people. Do they have what they need? What kind of training they need to be at that level? Do you want to add to that?
And I guess it's setting up the framework or the environment as well to ensure that you can deliver results and having the right framework in place across all channels. So with any organization, there's going to be a number of challenges: technology, different customer segments, a lot of driving forces. Trying to tie that together and create some sort of level platform and a common understanding of the goal is key to success. And we really focus on understanding that and stitching that into everything we do so that it's custom and it makes sense for your particular organization.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, all that's very true. In a transformation, like especially at Staples, we go in, we look at it, and you can't predict the future. That's just the reality. But what you can do is set yourself up to react to the future. And I think that's what we're looking to do, right? Is how do you build the foundation that, and the feedback loop to understand the market changes, and how do you bring that into the organization and react to those changes so that you stay relevant?
I think one of the key considerations across the whole thing is to have a really common understanding of the goal is actually about a customer, not a consumer, not an open mouth into which you jam a product, but a customer that you have a relationship with, you wrap around, you know, and you serve. And that can actually help break down perceived or real silos if everyone is of the same mindset of what the mission is. And the mission, which is one of the interesting things about design, having come from the agency mentality to sort of what Rangle is now developing itself as, that it's not about you, it's about somebody else. So it has to be egoless in the way you approach it. I think that's probably one of the big key things. If everyone's on that same page, it's easy to jump at it with the right lens.
If we look at the world today, you know, there's not enough ways that our customers can actually tell us through either digital or the stores what's important to them. So as an organization, we need to spend more time on the ground, right? Like listening and watching what happens.
What does that mean, like on the ground?
Actually going into the stores, right? Stay out of the ivory tower. You know, there's a lot of times where you're here, you're in these towers downtown, but your customers aren't, right? Like, where are your customers? Go where they are and actually talk to them. And I mean, you yourself may not need to do it, but it's always good to do it. But create the right channels and opportunities that your customers feel free that they can do that. I think a lot of places that I've worked before where I've seen really good leadership is customers have the ability to email the CEO, right, and give feedback directly to the CEO. And the CEO has, you know, will in return respond to that and, you know, help them along the way.
And I think for us, it's to enable our partners to have the right tools to gather that information and use it effectively. There's a lot of modern approaches you can use, tools to really test against the pains of that base to understand what they're trying to solve. It's less about the demographic themselves. It's about what pain am I trying to solve? What do I need to accomplish? What does my day look like? And how can you help me service me in that manner? So we try to provide the best tools in order to enable that.
And on top of also being mindful of the diversity of perspective now present in the conversation and going out and getting the data and finding out the real reactions, also lifting up and going, what are the commonalities of expectation? We now have an entire customer base out there who are gourmands of experience. Everybody has a very high bar of what they expect out of experience. So and TD is not competing with RBC in the app space or in an experience space. You're competing with Uber because that's the bar of expectation now. And that is ubiquitous regardless of demographic. Everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket which serves them immediately. And they will drop things immediately if it isn't reaching what they consider to be the bars.
Just to add to that, and I agree with all the points that were given, we're very lucky to be in Canada in general and in Toronto because of that diversity that we have. So if you want to really innovate in your products, if you collect the right data that you're getting from your touch points, from your software, you're getting an unbiased data because it's covering a different kind of ages, different kind of colors or cultures or whatever it is, right? This is why so many companies now are adopting machine learning or AI, and those algorithms are more powerful because of that. And you see as well the diversity within the company where we're hiring people from different backgrounds and walks of life, right? So you're bound to have a higher quality product in the end.
Are there any tools that someone in the audience should walk away with and use or implement? It's kind of a hard question.
I wouldn't say a tool. The tool is once you define your problem, you pick the tool. I would say pick the right people to help you choose the tools. data is for me, the most important part of any organization that gives you an insight to your customers, to what's happening, to the products you're offering. So having somebody that understands the data and can guide you and help you get those insights.
Right. So just collecting the data isn't enough.
No, it's not enough,
you
for
have
sure.
to have the right person. Okay.
Yes, to make sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the tools is the tactical of going to collect the data, and once you understand the data you need, you'll be able to get that. And kind of just speaking with Rangle, it's like one of the problems we had to solve is understanding again who that customer was, who the new customer in our stores were coming in. We didn't know who that was, so we actually partnered with Rangle, who had the expertise in helping us go solve that. They had a design thinking approach to going into the stores. They have my problem statement, but how do they go uncover that data for me to then just go make that decision?
One of the most interesting things about the story you just talked about too was the willingness to treat it as a service design problem as well, and get under the hood and go, okay, what are the mechanics of the way we're delivering these services, and how do we have to change that in order to really lift the user journey, the low points in the user journey, which is always scary. It's always frightening because everyone always wants to deal with just the outside veneer of experiences without actually changing the mechanisms that deliver those points in the person's holistic journey, because they don't think no user thinks in terms of channels. They're talking with the entity, and this is the most important thing to them at that moment. Why don't you know me? Why aren't you just solving my problem? And I should never have to start over, right? So this is the mindset. But if you start changing the mechanisms under the hood to be able to lift the experience, and that's exactly what you guys were right on board, Staples was right on board for, it makes all the difference. And you can make true impact as well, which isn't necessarily a tool unless you look at the service blueprint exercise to map that out, but it is in service of that sort of result.
And it's not only the customers that impact that experience, it's the entire organization. Anyone who touches that product or has a stake in it. So if you, in the case of Staples, where you had associates that were having a hand in assisting the customers, you have to take in consideration their pain points as well, and how you can marry that to the customer expectations to deliver the best experience.
Maybe you can tell me a little bit about the pain points of doing that with a company that is so entrenched with the Canadian consumer. And additionally, I think, it's been around since the 1950s. How did you manage to do that? And what lessons did you learn from that? And this is for Rangle as well, of course.
There's a lot in that question.
I know. I threw a lot at him, but he seemed like he could. He's capable of it.
Look, I think we really had to sit down and think about what we wanted to be, right? I think if you go and you scan the market in Canada and Canadian retail specifically, you see lots of retailers closing. You see lots of them kind of their business is shrinking. And the reality is, if we were to look at our sales and what was going to happen, we were threatened by the same thing. And we sat down and we really tried to figure out, okay, well, what do we want to be? We want to be that higher order, right? When you look at Staples today, you kind of picture it as the business warehouse, the office supplies warehouse. And the reality is, what we came to say is we want to become the working and learning company. And what does that mean? And that means, how do we help, teachers grow? How do we help teachers learn? How do we leverage our retail space to build a sense of community? And that's what became kind of our strategy. And so when you take that together, there's a lot that has to change, right? There's merchandising that changes. There's the stores that changes. There's technology that changes. The core fundamentals of who we are as an organization has to transform. What we've seen in the market today that opened up last month and December in Montreal is just the start of that journey, so it's no way over. I think, some of the things we had to learn was by doing this transformation, we're also potentially going to attract a new customer, but how do we make sure we don't alienate our current customers? And that's something that, we're still going along the path of learning. But then also as individuals within the company, ensuring that we understand what that new higher order of calling is, as an organization, and how do we, stay true to that?
The problem for large organizations to be able to reach the speed of innovation that is necessary and the reality of the current digital climate is not technology. That can be solved. It's the culture internally because to properly do it, you have to empower downward. It's a return authority model. You have to give the decisions to solving problems and move them down to the people who are going to be looking at those problems and coming up with the solutions. It can't be gated at the very top. And that is difficult. And it's impossible in some organizations. And we work with companies around the world. And sometimes you run into a business culture that is fundamentally incapable of allowing for that to occur. And that will create a great deal of frustration.
A good strategy is to deliver a quick win in some area. So it starts with an overall understanding that, hey, we want to fundamentally be different from the top down and we're going to make a change. It's not easy to really implement that change. But if you can start identifying quick wins along the way, you start delivering an environment of optimism and support, which then leads to better collaboration and more opportunities to innovate and drive impact, I guess.
Many large organizations, at the end of the day, it's results driven, right? And so when you talk about innovation and change, those are very hard things to do and very hard things to quantify just through a discussion. But when you can kind of create a small POC or show a small quick win, you can actually demonstrate a result. And so it's easier to have a conversation with, you know, the powers that be around that result and the impact of that result across the business.
You have to be flexible in what the mindset is with that as well. I mean, there's the traditional quant things that you can measure in terms of transaction value or upsell or any of the different areas that you kind of, it's the weird squishy qual ones that you'll actually find some really amazing insights. That is a proof point that changes the form of the conversation. What is the quality of outcome if you're looking at it from a very different lens? Say we're talking about a design system, large scale design systems. We're doing a few of those. And you have to change the lens of what you're measuring to understand what success is down the road. So it's important to be doing all of these, you know, proof of concepts and then using those as a lever for conversation, but without the proper, diverse, interesting, and oftentimes quirky KPI frameworks out of the gate and understood, and everyone recognizing what the value of some of those more bizarre things being measured are, quality of results is impossible to discuss. So if everyone's on the same page of what it is we're looking at as an example of success, that changes the ability to, and also changes your decisions on what you're willing to experiment on. Like Fintech is an interesting example. Fintech isn't a threat, it's a symptom. They're able to move at a very fast speed and match the expectations of experience. And that's something that you can measure. It's like, it's visible.
Institutions are big and have been there for a long time. They have something very powerful, which is the trust of people. People trust them. When they see their logo, their brand, they're like, okay, I'm comfortable, I know it. So they're in a very good position to to take a piece of their business and say, okay, we're gonna treat that as a startup. Forget processes, forget bureaucracy, forget everything. Let's just test this out. And they have to think of themselves as a technology company, because that's how the world is now. If you don't consider yourself a technology company first, you're not going to be able to compete with other.
So I know in innovation we often talk about getting people on board and understanding consumer and customer expectations moving forward. How do you deal with those people that, the people at the back end, the reluctant followers that aren't going to change, but could potentially be slowing you down because you have to incorporate them, or they're not going to change kind of by asking or trying to convincing, almost by, what's that threshold where you kind of you force them?
The best part is TD is perfectly tooled to service them that way. Still, like that doesn't go away, right? This is about the people who have a different mindset now and are feeling like they're not being serviced, right? And what they also need 5 to 10 years from now, right? So there's a long-term evolution in the thinking. So I know, I can see why that becomes a core part of the conversation, the consideration, because certainly the people who have been customers forever and are set in their ways certainly have more wealth. Right, so you can see where you're going to dial on that as these are the people you need to be focused on. But at the end of the day, 10, 15 years from now, that's a different audience, right? And that's going to change. And that audience expects Uber or the Starbucks cup that's sitting there waiting for them when they walk into the restaurant, like actual different bar of experience. And that's what it's about, right?
And I also think in FinTech, that group of, that segment, there is a lot of pain within that segment as well, and things they need to be solved. So understanding how technology or other services can benefit them, there's value in that can also stretch across your other customers. So for example, if I'm coming into a branch and I don't have access, or the teller doesn't have access to all my information and everything I'm doing the banking, all my banking assets with TD, and I'm trying to make some changes and they have to engage with other people, we can tackle that problem as an example on the back end. So the customer journey is still the same for them, but they just get a better experience on the front end. So there's ways to
one thing I'll add to that is I come from a very different place. It's probably a bit more ruthless. But in one of the technology companies I worked for, we never supported an OS that was more than a year old, right? And the reason we did that is that increases significant overhead on the organization as a whole to support a bunch of legacy systems. And that was something that slowed, the technology organization's ability down to move really quickly. And again, it's a behavioral thing that you need to start to essentially teach your customers about, right? You're a bank, right? You're gonna have reputational risk. I'm sure you guys always hear about that. You wanna do something cool, what's the reputational risk, right? What does InfoSec say? So you're gonna have, negative connotations to making some of these bold decisions, but I think that's a fundamental difference between, technology companies and say like even companies like Staples or TD, is I think technology companies are more bold and willing to say, we're drawing the line here and that's where it is. Whereas we take a bit more of an approach of, holistic, what does everybody want?
Institutional fear occurs at scale because people don't want to be the one responsible for sinking what was amazing. That's at a certain point at scale, that's going to happen. But there's ways around it. And I think we started with a small POC sort of approach.
There are a couple people who had more questions, but definitely our panelists will be around so you can chat with them afterwards. Thank you again.
Before I founded Borrowell, I was working at a bank and really could see that I felt there were really big gaps in the market. Yeah. And one of the things that stuck out for me was how inefficiently a lot of debt in Canada is held amongst consumers. So there's people that I think have the wrong products or have not access to the best products they could. And that really inspired me to leave that job and found a company where, and how we do it has changed a little bit over the years, but fundamentally our goal is the same, our mission is the same, which is that we want to help people make great decisions about credit. We think credit and financial services is really complicated. I'm sure many of you in the room think about that problem as well. And how do we make something as complicated and as intimidating as credit a lot simpler so that people can make better decisions and get on with their lives and buy houses and buy cars and lead successful lives. You are based in Canada. You decided to stay. So tell me a little bit about how that impacted your career and the startup's trajectory. Sure. So I've been lucky to live overseas a few times in my life, including in the U.S. And I was really deliberate about wanting to come back to Canada after living in the U.S. in the mid 2000s. I think there's lots of opportunity in Canada. I think it's never been a better time to found a Toronto-based startup. I think what we're doing is sort of even more sort of specific than that. We're actually founding a company. We founded a company focused on the Canadian market, and I think there are very few verticals in Canada where you can do that. I think it's a very high risk strategy in many ways, but I think in financial services there actually is a big opportunity to do that because we are fortunate to have a very robust and large financial services sector in Canada, and one that is very profitable, right? I mean, it really is amazing how large and deep financial services are in Canada. So, $1.5 trillion of consumer credit in Canada. We have some of the best banks in North America, certainly some of the most profitable. There's stats that we often use when we're talking to investors in other markets. We say things like, did you know that, and I could use TD, but why don't they use TD? Did you know that TD makes more profit annually than Reebok and or Adidas rather and Nike together? People are like, wow, that's impressive. Or did you know that RBC makes more profit every year than Morgan Stanley? So there's facts like that people don't necessarily know about the Canadian financial ecosystem that I think really speaks to the opportunity to alongside the financial institutions we have here grow really big businesses in the financial services space. And by the way, I think that's good ultimately for the financial services ecosystem. I think in any ecosystem, you want established players, but you also want sort of insurgent, growing companies that are bringing innovation and ultimately can work alongside established companies. When fintech was becoming a bigger thing, sort of 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of talk of sort of disruption and is this going to be the end of big banks? And you had Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan say like Silicon Valley is coming and we all got to watch out. And I think what the reality has been is that some of the most successful companies in the fintech space have found ways to work as part of an ecosystem with established financial services companies. And that's certainly what we've done. The way our business works today, the main part of what we do is that we offer credit information for free to consumers. So we were the first company in Canada to offer credit scores for free. We've been doing that for more than 2.5 years. We offer credit. You can see your full credit file with Borrowell. You can also now, as of last week, we've got a great tool we just launched called the Credit Coach, and it analyzes your credit report using a lot of sort of advanced technology, including machine learning, and then gives recommendations or gives insights into what's driving your credit score and credit report. And then what do we do with all that? Well, we give it to the consumer for free, and then we're able to recommend financial products that'll be a good fit for the consumer. And that, I think, is big value add for our users, but it's also big value add for the financial institutions we work with. And we work with many mid-sized and large financial institutions in Canada. We work with, including MBNA. We've had many conversations with TD, and I hope that soon we'll be working more formally together, but we certainly work with 3 of the 5 big banks and lots of other financial institutions. And what they say is, look, a big pain point for them is how do I find the right users, the right consumers for my products? So let's say you're in charge of credit card acquisition at a big bank. You want to find consumers that are ultimately going to be interested in and qualify for your product. No one wants to have someone apply and reject them, right? No one, there's no bank, no credit card issuer wants to do that. It costs money, it's bad for the brand. So what we can do is we can help match our users with the right products, because we can say, look, based on what we know about you, based on your financial goals, where you live, and your credit data, we can say with high likelihood you will qualify for this product, you'll qualify for this mortgage, but you're not going to qualify likely for this auto loan or this credit card. And so then we can really match consumers and the providers of financial services, like large banks, to be able to make that matching much more efficient. So what we hear often from the companies, from the banks we work with, they say, you are the highest approval channel we have. Because if I advertise on Facebook, or if I advertise on Google, or I take out a TV ad, I'm going to get a lot of applications, I'm going to turn them down. You just don't even show my product to people that are going to be turned down, and that's great. I really appreciate that. So, we knew from the beginning we weren't going to create, financial products overnight for every single part of the spectrum and every sort of product vertical. So we've been partnering from the beginning, or from once we selected the strategy, we've been working with large banks, mid-sized banks, to offer a range of financial products to our users.
How are you managing to attract not just the younger millennial groups?
Yeah, so we have a very broad spectrum of users. So we have over 800,000 users. We add thousands and thousands of new users a week. So from a user perspective, we're probably, certainly one of, if not the largest fintech company in Canada in terms of reach, or at least Canadian fintech company. And the average age of a user on our platform is about 40. So we are we are not a millennial-focused, exclusively millennial-focused company. We've had someone check their credit scores over, I think 102 is our record for oldest user in terms of who's checked their credit score with us. And what we've found is that there's so many digitally savvy people at every age now. There's people using Facebook at every age and stage. We have users that are very, very savvy at every age. The idea that it's only millennials that are online or that are interested in services like ours just isn't right. And what we found is that there's many people at many stages of life who are very concerned about credit, and they have goals they want to achieve. So, we're very much a sort of like we're not a product for the 1%. So we have our most engaged users tend to be people that are in the sort of middle or sort of around the average when it comes to income, around the average when it comes to credit score. And these are people who have goals like wanting to buy a house or wanting to buy a car in a year. Maybe they've had financial challenges in the past. Maybe they lost a job and missed a few payments, or maybe not. But we can help them understand their situation and improve it. And there's many people who are happy to have that kind of experience online or with an app, but are intimidated by the idea of going to a branch. So I think when it comes to credit and not feeling super confident about credit, many people prefer technology than face-to-face.
And so I think when people are using online services, especially when it deals with fintech and money, there's always the issue of data and privacy. And so how is Borrowell dealing with that and ensuring, and also I guess talking with consumers and customers and providing them with that security that you're just as good, because even though you don't have a physical storefront, as a traditional bank?
Yeah, I mean, I think privacy and security are crucial issues, and they're sort of business mission critical issues for us, both from just we wouldn't survive long as a business if we didn't do everything we could and we weren't successful at trying to handle those issues. I mean, I think the first thing is transparency is really important. So we say right on our homepage how we make money. So we give away credit scores for free. We give away credit information for free. That obviously costs us money. And the way we monetize is by offering our users useful products. And there's no obligation. You don't have to take it. If it's not useful, don't click on it. But many, many people find our recommendations useful, and that's how we get paid. And that's how we keep the lights on. And so being transparent, I think, is a really important place to start. And it's a scary world out there when it comes to security. We worry about it a lot. I mean, I think there are advantages to being a new company and using sort of best-in-class latest tech. We have a relatively simple technology footprint compared to, perhaps an older institution. So that helps us, but look, I go to bed every night. One of the things I worry about is, are we doing enough to tackle security? Credit data and other data that the user provides. So we ask users, like, what are your financial goals in the next year or two? And if someone says my goal is to buy a house, then we'll make sure we present information about what they can do to improve their score such that then they can get access to a better mortgage. Or maybe their score is already great, then we'll provide articles or other content about buying a house, or we'll connect them to a suitable mortgage broker. So we really try to anticipate user need and then be there with advice, products, et cetera, using the data and the relationship we have. Our job then is to try to be thoughtful about what product or service the person would be in the market for.
Summary question. So where do you see Borrowell moving forward in the next year to 2 years, especially if there is an economic downturn, as some experts expect there to be?
So we're very focused on our mission of helping consumers make great decisions about credit. That really is ultimately sort of like the North Star for us. So the question is, how can we do a better job at that? And I think there's a few answers. I think first of all, we can continue improving the sort of advice and education on our site. One of the things that I think is very exciting about fintech and what's happened in financial services technology in the last 10 years is the democratization of advice. So it's always been the case that if you're wealthy and have a high income, you can get great advice around financial services, right? You'll have a tax planner, you'll have investment managers, et cetera. But it's often been the case that if you're just sort of at an average income level, or even a bit above an average income level, you're not going to get much in the way of advice. And technology really offers the opportunity to make advice much more prevalent because of tools like AI, big data, et cetera. And so I think we're showing that if you go look at our credit coach, that's a free tool. It's not like there's a person, every day setting the credit coach answers for every user. It's all automatically generated. But I think there's a lot of insight there that's useful for someone, for people really at any stage of the credit journey, especially for people who are looking to improve their credit. Your
platform allows merchants to sell their products and create pretty much essentially create loans for their customers. And I'm just wondering, again, I'm just gonna bring it back to my experience. We talked about this already, but there were a lot of customers who live in Borrowell, Ontario, and they just don't have access to mobile and Wi-Fi that we do in larger cities. Yep. So how does your company, service those type of customers?
Sure. So the category that we're in isn't terribly novel. I wish that we could say that we cured cancer or developed a hyperloop or whatever, but what we enable.
What is a hyperloop?
Oh, it's awesome. We can talk about it later.
Okay.
Anyway, so but what we do is enable merchants that are trying to sell predominantly home services. So new roof, new HVAC unit, extending your house, whatever it is, predominantly in the home services industry. We help make that purchase affordable by turning it into a monthly payment at point of sale. So we have a platform that uses mobile, predominantly in the cloud, to develop an instant approval, full sort of culmination of a legal document that allows people to do a monthly payment plan at point of sale. So the question that you would have is, if there isn't access to a mobile network, which I think there's very few places in Canada that you don't have access to.
So it doesn't facilitate the best experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think back to this concept I think that you guys are talking about, which is innovation and product development, you really have to ensure that you're user testing a financial services application for all conditions, right? Because otherwise you're just setting up a prejudice towards urban centers. And I literally grew up in the Northwest Territories, so I am not from a big city in any way, shape, or form. So we've developed our applications and our mobile applications so that they work on really slow speeds. And you can still get the job done. Not as well, of course, as if you're on like an LTE network, but you can do the application on a mobile device someplace in the Arctic as long as you've got access to some cell tower, right? It doesn't have to be high-speed internet. And that's the way we do product design, to ensure that we have responsive web. We don't ask people to have to download an application for something that's just kind of a one-time thing. We try to leverage our product thinking to say, do you have a problem seeing things if you're older? And so we can't have a whole bunch of small print that you can't ultimately see what you're signing up for. So we really think about product design for multiple use cases, and slow internet is one of the use cases.
And so tell me a little bit about, when it comes to product innovation, how you're continually ensuring your product is keeping up with the needs of your customers.
So we developed a product this last year that we're super proud of, in conjunction with the single largest home services retailer on the planet, Home Depot. And we said, hey, Home Depot, we've developed this point of sale lending thing that your customers, either that come into your store or that originate an install, because Home Depot is a big installer. You go into the store and you say, I'd like someone to come and install an HVAC unit, and they send somebody out to your house to give you a quote and ultimately give you an HVAC unit. And so HVAC, if another way of putting it. And so in those circumstances, we said, look, we've got a great tool that allows you to do payment plans for your customers. I know you've tried this in the past with big banks. I know it hasn't been successful, but we're better for a whole bunch of reasons. What do you think? And they said, yeah, your core product is interesting, but it still doesn't meet our needs. All right, so here's what our needs are, Michael. First of all, this is a sales tool, right? So just like mortgages sell houses, 100% of houses get sold with a mortgage. Congratulations, you guys are in the mortgage business. 80% of vehicles of all kinds get sold on an installment plan provided by a bank and offered inside of a point of sale location called, your GMAC dealership, or your Porsche, in your case, a Porsche dealership, or wherever else, you might happen to be offering these services. So financial services power sales. I know you guys don't often think like that, right? We think financial services is a branch, our customers, they have an application, but that's not true. You guys are powering, we collectively are powering retail sales with financial service products. In the home services business, there isn't a lot of powering with financial service product. There's you get HELOCs. You got a home equity line of credit. You have to go get it. It's not a very useful tool, blunt instrument. Doesn't make you a ton of money. You don't like it. Guys that are retailing it don't like it. So what we did is create a product that was essentially a virtual line of credit for Home Depot. And so what they said is, the first and foremost, it's got to be a sale acceleration tool. We want to have something that we can use in all of our channels, in store, online, in field, when some dude in a truck shows up to give you an estimate. We need something that's going to drive sales because it's simple, the rate is good, it's easy to use, it's not, that's the experience. So that's the first criteria that you've got to solve. The second criteria is it has to be integrated into our system, right? That means you've got to integrate into our point of sale payment system. This thing has to clear real-time funds same day in a store. The biggest problem with every financial institution that tried to sell a product to Home Depot, and RBC was there, I'm not sure if TD did it, CIBC tried it, everybody failed because they couldn't get their systems to integrate and do the heavy lifting to integrate into Home Depot systems. We were fine doing it, so we said, all right, we're going to have to solve that problem. We have to integrate our payment methodology such that we create a payment type that you can take in a store, you can scan it in the scanners that are used by Home Depot, and it processes it as a real payment in real time that day. Then the third thing that we had to do is we had to brand it them. They're like, hey, we're the Home Depot, you're Financeit, right? Everyone's heard of us, not enough people have heard of you. This thing's called Home Depot. Again, when banks tried to offer this product to the Home Depot, the banks thought their brand was more important than Home Depot's brand. If you're gonna sell something to a retailer, you can't think like that, right? So we called it the Home Depot Project Loan, parentheses, powered by Financeit. Let it be them. Why? Because then they have to market it, they have to spend all that money, they have to drive a whole bunch of activity. I get the benefit of their incredible brand in motion. So those three product requirements were essential to build something for the Home Depot. And if you didn't do it, you didn't either get it in the first place or actually you weren't able to be successful. And the results are that we currently have a run rate of an 8x on a monthly basis over what their best bank partner ever gave them in the product that they had in their store. And we're just getting started. Like we're like 5 months into offering this product. I'm gonna be like an 80x over time, right? Yeah, you heard it here. When we developed this product, our target was to get to people doing installations because we wanted the big ticket installation services. But they're using our product to actually, as an alternative to their existing credit card product. So they have a credit card product by Citibank that they have used forever. They put $1 billion a year in Canada on this credit card product. And they've started substituting our mobile app for that credit card product and promoting appliance purchases, barbecues. I don't actually want a lot of that stuff. Like I'm okay with it, but we really want it to be for that installation services business. Right. That's the transaction that we want. In terms of the demographic, I mean, 35 to 55. I don't think it's relatively equally weighted so far on gender. It's just people who own homes that want a simple, easy way to extend value in their home. And this idea that they create this virtual card that they can walk into any store with, and it's currency, it's like magic to them. It's like those little donuts, magic.
Thanks again, everyone, for being our guests today. And feel free to drop by or reach out anytime to follow up on anything that we talked about today. So thanks.